Listen, balance doesn't exist.
Hmm.
You know, if you can find balance where you're like, I did this and I did that and it was perfect and I just balanced it perfectly. Either you're in a different tax bracket than we are right now, or I'm trying to get there. But right now, there's really no such thing as balance. I think it's more about prioritization and what you want to create time for.
I'm Andre, and this is the Speak Your Life podcast, where we talk about everything as it relates to education, careers, values, mentors, and anything to do with purpose. We do this one impactful conversation at a time, whether a solo dolo with yours truly or our amazing guests to share stories, industry insights, encouraging words, and calls to action that can help you get closer to your why. Become a part of the Speak Your Life community by subscribing today to the podcast and following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Speak Your LYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. Today's guest is from Minnesota, and he is an educator and a creative at heart. He had an idea to create connections and capture memories through a coffee table book affectionately titled Rules for Life. Over time, this idea evolved into a card game, but the vision still stayed the same. Please welcome Brandon Slaughter.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. How are you doing?
I'm feeling really good.
Good. So
I'm excited to be on this podcast.
Yeah, it was like crazy scheduling, going back and forth, trying to figure this out. So
I'm so glad we locked it in.
Yeah, man. It's cold outside, but it's warm in here. So it's hopefully, I don't know, things. I told you before, I'm not from here, and so I'm still trying to get used to this weather and everything like that. And I only get this Speak Your Life hoodie on, so that was a mistake right there.
Yeah.
So
if you were from anywhere else, like if you're from Minneapolis and you were wearing a hoodie, I'd be like, oh yeah, you've seen some cold, but you gotta wear a jacket or something,
Yeah, that's right. I'm learning my lesson. But yeah, man. So you said you're from Minnesota. Is it Twin Cities you're from, or?
So the Twin Cities, like the Minnesota Twins, are referring to St. Paul and Minneapolis. I'm from Minneapolis.
Okay, cool. I love that city. I feel like I call it the hidden jewel of America, and the reason why is because people, man, they sleep on that city. They like overlook it. Everybody wants to go to Los Angeles, Atlanta. I love Atlanta. That's where I'm from. I don't blame them. But like, they just overlook. They hit all these big cities: Boston, New York. They don't like. Nobody wants to go and visit Minneapolis. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's kind of like the final stop before you hit like the west coast. In terms of like when people talk about cities. Yeah. And Minneapolis is a very interesting city. It's like one of those cities where if you want to have easy access to just outdoor stuff all year round. At the same time, I think it's super diverse, right?
I definitely agree with that. And
so the diversity of Minneapolis has quickly been changing, and it's just been adding to the vibrancy of the city.
I remember when I was there before, I was looking at Hamlin University and a small private liberal arts school.
I almost went there.
Yeah, same here. So I'm kind of glad I didn't, only because like I don't want to experience negative 20-degree weather. So but I love the vibe there. Like the people are nice, really nice. Like I'm from the South, so I know what Southern hospitality is like. I come to New York and Jersey, don't get that. Right. But the people are still nice, when you get to, you have to talk to them first and they'll, warm up. But the people in the Midwest, I feel I've met some of the nicest people there. They just they'll do anything for you. So
yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So but before we get started, are you like into the Vikings at all, or?
Yeah, still favoring the home teams. Vikings and T-Wolves. I can't say. I'll root for the Twins, but I'm not like the biggest baseball fan. Like I'm like one of those, like when October starts. Let me know.
Yeah, that's right.
But Minneapolis, definitely hometown hometown sports teams, to the death of
Man, because they're in the playoffs. They beat the Saints 2 times in a row now. So,
yeah.
Man, the Saints just can't catch a break when it comes to the Vikings.
Well, I don't know about that because I think we lost to the Saints on our way to the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, that's right.
When Brett Favre, of all people, was the
I remember that sack.
quarterback. Yeah. So I just want to,
man.
maybe this is coming full circle.
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully this time, like, you guys actually like make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But
I don't think we've ever been.
I think you guys were there like once, maybe before, but it was like.
No.
But you guys didn't win, but it was maybe only once.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my team, the Falcons. We've been never won. So, but anyways, but yeah, man. So tell me about the whole story before get into the whole thing about rules for life. We're gonna just talk about you.
Yeah.
So tell us about where you're born, growing up, just like. All that stuff. Give us the 5-minute life story.
5-minute life story. I'll start by saying that I was truly blessed growing up. So I was born into your typical African American family that migrated from the South during the Great Migration, and the story kind of goes that the family left Virginia. They traveled up through Ohio. Yeah. From Ohio, they traveled or coal mining brought them to Ohio. They traveled from Ohio to, of all places, Iowa. Yeah. There was a city in Iowa called Buxton that was, again, one of those industrial cities that was kind of during the Industrial Revolution, doing a lot of mining, effectively taking a lot of the natural resources and mining them in service of the development of kind of the industrial, I'd say, East Coast and ultimately the West. Yeah. And then eventually my understanding is the family moved from Buxton to Des Moines, Iowa, and that's where my mother's generation was born, and so my grandmother's generation kind of grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, and eventually the whole family kind of migrated up to Minneapolis, and so that's how I wound up being born in Minneapolis, and was an only child. Grew up with a bunch of cousins, and one of the interesting things about my family is the reason I have a sense of all of this history because they did such an amazing job of saving it. So we have photos from back photos that date back into like the early 1900s or even like late 1800s.
Yeah, I see one on your wall. Is that one of your family?
Yeah, so that's an interesting picture. So you're pointing at a picture that shows it's a bunch of students. Think of like the students who take their class picture all together in like kindergarten or first grade. And what's interesting is that picture was taken in 1910. My grandmother was born in 1904. Wow. So she's dead center in a white dress with pigtails, and right next to her is her sister. My grandmother was, her name was Virginia B. Slaughter. Virginia relating to kind of where the family traveled from. And I should say she was born Virginia Beatrice Cassell. Slaughter was her surname. I can come back to that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about the picture that you're looking at is that it is a integrated classroom.
And in 1810, that's interesting.
Yeah. So if you think about kind of where we are in 1910, we are 2 years away from World War I. We are kind of in the early stages of the Great Migration. You have, still a very segregated United States, right on the heels of Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. And you're looking at a integrated classroom. Now, my understanding of Buxton is that Buxton was one of these towns that was effectively like a factory town, and it was established quickly. They were building these kind of your typical like prefabricated houses, and they had to build things so quickly that and they needed people to build it. There was I think a level of what's the word? I would say maybe not acceptance, but there was more of a willingness, given the circumstances, to allow for like a greater level of integration.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah, and so my grandmother would go on. She was the oldest of 13, and would go on to go to Tuskegee Institute. So if you know anything about Tuskegee, it was kind of one of a series of HBCUs, and were created right after the Civil War to afford Africans an opportunity to take up educational matters or vocational matters. And so what is really cool is that I have a picture of my grandmother in her cap and gown at Tuskegee. And we have actual course books from 1921 of like, these are the courses that are offered at Tuskegee.
Wow.
And so it is a really, really kind of cool artifact. But those are the type of things that like the family, kept and held on to. And so jumping ahead, a little bit about myself. So I grew up in kind of an interesting circumstance. I was an only child, and I tell people I was born late in my generation. So my grandmother Virginia had 3 daughters. Alva was the oldest, Nancy was the middle child, and later came my mother, Cheryl, and so my Aunt Alva and Aunt Nancy had their kids probably about like 10 to 15 years before my mother had me. And so when I came into the family, I was very much like the youngest. And because of the circumstances, my mother and father did not stay together. We grew up, or I grew up with my grandmother. And so a lot of this, I was like probably I had the benefit of having my grandmother in the house all the time, as opposed to a lot of my cousins, and was partly raised by her. So all of this kind of family history and background, I got a chance to kind of tap into and absorb.
That's pretty awesome. Man, most people don't get to experience that. They hear about it, but to see the pictures or to like see, books from Tuskegee, that's a whole different,
Is it?
You can see it just, with your own eyes instead of just hearing about with your ears. So
I'll tell you kind of an interesting story. My grandmother, her full name was Virginia Beatrice Cassell. So I was, born, had a chance to grow up with her, but when my mother was choosing my name, I don't have my father's middle name or last name. He didn't influence it. So my mother, my grandmother married a Leroy Slaughter, and so my middle name and surname are borrowed from both my grandmother and my grandfather on my maternal side. And so my middle name is Cassell, which is my grandmother's original surname, and then my last name is Slaughter. And so why I'm telling you this is because I think the icing on the cake maybe to this story and all the history behind it is if you follow the Cassell family line back through my grandmother, you'll run into a Francis Woodson, and if you keep going back and back and back, you'll eventually hit Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. And so if you don't know the story, Thomas Jefferson had a slave concubine.
Oh yeah, I heard many. Yeah.
Yes. And her name was Sally Hemings. And so it's a really interesting piece of like the family narrative and family history, because I think I am blessed to be kind of one of a handful. I have no idea how many African Americans can really trace their lineage back to like the 1800s, but to be able to do that has been really truly a blessing. And probably these are some of the factors that pushed me to become a history teacher. Why I fell in love with teaching
that's
history.
Really awesome.
So that's me. That's a little background about my family and who I am.
Nice. So like let's speed up past the 1800s and now
Yes.
and into the present moment. How did you get into the whole card game, and how did that come about? Tell that story.
Yeah. So the Rules for Life has kind of an interesting background, and it's kind of evolved. I'll try to make it. I wish it was juicier than it was, but it's really
that's okay.
It's really not.
Just tell like it is.
Yeah. So back in the day, I used to teach, and I held down a like part-time job, hustling. Yeah. And the job I held down was at a FedEx office. You go in there and make copies, send packages. Yeah. Did that on the weekends, and I loved it because as a teacher, I could come in on the weekends and just print anything I wanted. So I was that teacher that was like, boom, your assignment is blue, this other one was yellow, this other one was green. And I could handle all these different things, and it really helped me out. Because if you're a teacher out there and you're listening to this, you know that the printer always breaks Monday morning at like 6 a.m.
When everybody's trying to print. Yeah.
Exactly. So in any case, it was around the phase where I was transitioning from college into kind of my early adult life, and we all know like Facebook is cool. Social media is kind of around the time social media was really growing, and I felt like in college, you go to events, people take pictures, they tag you, and you kind of have a sense of like what you did. You have a history or a timeline, right? And I was reaching this point where I was doing a lot of reflecting, and I realized I hadn't really written a journal or like captured some thoughts or feelings in a long time. And so I was like, well, maybe I could create a journal. I got all this time in this FedEx office, let me just like create one. And the biggest issue I had with journals was that you write in them, like old journals I had, you write them, but you have to like reread the entire entry to figure out what you were kind of focusing on. So I was like, why don't I build out like a little like set of check boxes? I'm a teacher, we use rubrics all the time. Build this out, like what could I possibly be like thinking about? And I started writing out just a generic list of categories. It was like life, relationships, like finances, career, all of these different categories. And as I created this book, started using it, I was like, this would be kind of a cool quote book. And like something, if I shrank it, I could leave on like the coffee table, and when people come over and you get into amazing discussions, and your friend says something, like totally like off the wall. Yeah. You're like, let's write this down and hold on to this memory, this quote. That's right. And so the Rules for Life started off as like this coffee table book, and it was an interesting thing to kind of like try to sell or promote, because people were like, what is this? And I would explain it to them, like, oh, that's cool. Actually, I'd love to have it in my on my coffee table or something like that. But it was one of those things that when people saw it and they wanted to write in it, oftentimes I'd have to sit there and kind of give them like a suggestion. Like they're like, oh, what do I write? I want to write something good. As an example, I had friends who I brought it to the wedding. If you could imagine sitting around a quote book that says rules for life, and you have everyone from like grandma to auntie to like bridesmaid writing in it at the end of your wedding, hand it to them. It's like these are the rules for like the rest of your life. These are the rules for marriage. And people are like, this is the most powerful thing, best gift we've received, on our wedding day. People revisit it on their anniversaries, things of that nature. But a lot of times when I was going around the room, people were struggling with what to write. And so I would oftentimes find myself giving them prompts, and as I did that, eventually it dawned on me, this alone could be a game in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so I kind of flipped it and started thinking about, like, based on those categories, what are some common experiences that we all experience in life? What are the rules for saying I love you first? Right? Like, what are the rules for like wingmanning?
Those are very good questions.
Yeah. And so it kind of evolved into this game of prompts that ultimately elicit kind of the same thoughts, ideas, things that people would want to like capture in this quote book. But what's cool about it is it comes out now it's not simply contained in a book, but it comes out in kind of discussion. And the experiences that people have with the game are ever changing and just truly amazing. So that's a little bit of like the background of
nice
how the game was created.
Wow, because I remember when we met at the Christmas party and and it was so much chaos. There's food, there was music, there was people talking, and it was a good time. But I was just trying to figure like, oh man, should I play spades? Should I play Uno? What is this game over here? Like, and everybody was just, I don't think that the group that we had, they didn't really understand fully as far as like how it was played, but we're just kind of like, I don't know, kind of going with the flow. Like you try to explain like 4 times and get cut off so many times. What was funny about that was because there was a couple people who had played before. Okay.
Ironically, like a game that talks about like the game about rules kind of doesn't have any rules to it. There are suggestions for how you can play it.
Sure.
But I would say almost every time I have ever probably never has anyone ever fully followed the rules on the box. I think they've appreciated the suggestions of how you can like take different angles of playing it. But sure. I would say like it usually starts off in this like, I don't know, in this fashion where people want to kind of follow these rules, and then discussions start, the conversation goes left, goes right. And people are like, this is way better. Like at the end of the day, I really wanted to create this game that would like foster like really true and deep like connection, and get people, evoke in people memories, stories, I don't know, beliefs, ideas,
perspectives.
Yes, totally. And create a space for those interactions.
Yeah, because I remember what stood out to me when you were explaining this game at the party. I remember you were saying how like all these other games, it seems to be focused on like the game itself, or like just the concept of it, rather than like the people, focusing and connecting truly with the people, and getting to know their perspectives or their angles on life, because everybody has a different walk of life. So whenever you're at a gathering, a party, whatever, a kickback, and you have a game like this, it's not just that was Brandon, that guy I met, I played this game at this Christmas party. From this game, I remember Brandon's philosophy on relationships. I remember his perspectives on just what it means to have a great career and a purpose in life. I can go on and on. So that is what I really appreciated about this game. I was like, man, we gotta have this guy on the podcast. So I was like, I liked how you had a purpose for your game, a why, if I shall say. That's that's what I'm all about. That's what we're Speak Your Life is all about. So having a why. So yeah, that's great, man. So with this, this whole thing, has this been solo dolo for you, or have you like had partners, or how has that worked?
So I would say a good portion of it has just been just me hustling, but
sure, yeah.
There have been a number of people that have like stepped in and helped me out along the way. Mm-hmm. I would like give a huge amount of credit to my whole I'm just gonna call them my Wakulla Street family. So there was a group of folks that lived on a street in Boston called Wakulla Street that in many ways inspired a lot of what became the Rules for Life, and so I give them a bunch of credit. But I would say the most recent, so I was able to produce the game like officially for like, I don't know, early release or whatever you want to call it, in August. And so that whole hustle to figure that whole production process out was largely me. Labor of love.
Nice. When you were saying Wakulla, I thought you were like trying to play on words. It's like Wakanda film. Like, wait, okay. No. But yeah, that's cool though. That's awesome. And tell us about that. Actually, you're in New York now. You're originally from Minnesota, but it sounds like Boston has a special place in your heart. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I went to Boston College. From my undergrad and grad, and then remained in the city for about 10 years. Yeah. And so it was a big part of my early adulthood. And there was I think what kept me in Boston, first off, Boston's like an awesome city. I think it's a city that has, I think like all cities, opportunities to grow, strengthen, etc. But I definitely had a lot of fun. I learned a lot about myself in Boston, and one of the places that I learned a lot about myself was this place called Wakulla Street in Roxbury. So if you're listening to this, shout out to Roxbury, shout out to Dorchester, but Roxbury is where it's at. As long as, while I should say right now, Roxbury is getting gentrified. And there's this small little, sliver of land called Wakulla Street that was it redefined what I understood the word community meant. And a big reason why was because of the gentleman by the name of I'll call him Evans. And Evans was a former teacher, educator, historian, advocate, and he owned a couple properties on Wakulla Street, and he would only really rent to like good people who were like doing good things. A lot of educators, a lot of folks who were like aspiring social justice activists, Charles Hamilton Houston type lawyers, like people who were really like anchored and grounded in like justice. And so there was this synergy, this level of connection. There was like people feeding off each other in terms of reading books, having conversations, and just a level of like cooperation and community that I'd never experienced before or after. And so that's what really made Boston unique, but more importantly, I think Wakulla is what made Boston unique. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Wow, it's interesting because a lot of times, people go to college or they get so wrapped up in that life or campus life, but they forget about the surrounding city or or don't take time to appreciate the city nearby, and it's, I like how you mentioned that word community a lot, and that seems to be a ringing theme to, and has, as it relates and connects to this game that you created.
Yeah.
Because it's all about community at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
The people that you're next to, whether they be friends, family, or even new friends, or maybe even new family, that you never know you can meet in this game. Yeah. So, that's really important. And because, bringing people together in a world where we're so divided by technology, screens, social media, and it's good to sometimes just go back to old card games, or just old fashioned, just stuff that people used to do, that they kept their network strong, they kept their relationship strong. Mm-hmm. Those things, looking somebody eye to eye while they're explaining their philosophy on life, or just hearing their story through answering certain sort of questions based off a category they selected in the stack of cards. So that's really cool. I really appreciate that word community. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how do you balance, working as an educator and also, trying to hustle and trying to just, be an entrepreneur and make it out there as well?
I think it's a great question. In the most simplistic form, I think like discipline is freedom. Mm-hmm. And so I think this idea of really owning your schedule and owning what you're going to prioritize in your life, and for what reasons, I think is the only way you can kind of create balance. I would also just say that, like, to a certain extent, and I remember having a great discussion with a good friend, and they said something that stuck with me, where they were like, listen, balance doesn't exist. If you can find balance where you're like, I did this and I did that and it was perfect and I just balanced it perfectly, either you're in a different tax bracket than we are right now, or I'm trying to get there, but right now there's really no such thing as balance. I think it's more about prioritization and what you want to create time for. Mm-hmm.
The BBC reports a U.S. workers' online study said that nearly 70% agree public speaking skills are critical for success at work. Maybe you are a student looking to become a prime candidate for that internship, or might I say full-time position, or maybe you have already been in the job market for some time now and you just want to stand out amongst your coworkers looking to get that raise you feel like you've been passed up for too long now. Go to speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. That's speakyourlyfe.com/private-lessons. Again, that's speakyourlyfe.com/private-lessons. To become a better communicator tomorrow by signing up today. One of my friends, I like to call her one of my big sisters, she would say that to me. She's like, Andre, she's helping me with my schedule, and she's like, Andre, stop with this whole balance thing. Just stop it. It just doesn't exist. You need to prioritize your time. And I'm just like, man, it's hard. It's hard because, you want to be able to, I guess, give your energy, you want to give your time to things that matter most to you, and spread out as equally as you can. So that's the theory. That's what you idealize. Right. That's, I guess you could say, that's a utopia. Then you have reality, and you have, you have work, you have bills, you have maybe a family, you have, I don't know, friends that you gotta give time to. You have all these different things, and so depending on the season in life that you're in, depending on where you're at in your life, certain things that used to be important at a certain period in your life, like in college, are not as important as like maybe like, you know, I don't know, like going out and partying all the time. Maybe that's not as high on the priority list.
Sure.
You know, as you know, whenever you get older, you know, you have maybe you want to go out still, you want to have a good time, but it's not as high on the priority list.
You know, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think also, you know, it is easy to fall into a level of judgment when thinking about what others are choosing to prioritize.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even like looking at the things you're prioritizing and then trying to compare yourself to others. Because I think in some instances, like going out and partying and having a good time, like that. Like that could be one person's way of releasing.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And that could be just as powerful for them as someone else's like choice to meditate, or you know, or whatever that may be. But I think it really is. You know, I had to make a decision that I was going to you know, see this idea through. Yeah. I had this declaration that I was going to create a national like best-selling game. And I truly believe that the rules for life, you know, will be that. I have no idea how to get there.
That's okay.
And so I told myself, you know, I'm in a great place right now where you know, I don't have any kids. I'm not married, and so there's a level of you know, to your point of prioritization, right? That I have some flexibility around. You know, not to say that people with kids can't look to prioritize their lives, etc. But to really, you know, go hard, you know, around this and see if this can, you know, hopefully have it take off. Yeah. And we'll see what happens next. But that's kind of where I'm at, and it's been slow gains. And figuring things out. I'll say this. So 2020, I think like many people, a new year prompts like a level of like reflection. And I realized that like my commitment to like growing this game and following around this game has like really I've learned so much about myself through this process, and it has redefined like how I think about like the word commitment or like dedication, and it also makes me it's made me think about like where else in my life, you know, might I apply this same level of commitment, dedication, or prioritization, right? You can switch these words interchangeably. Yeah. And so it's been both a labor of love, but it's been like an education in self at the same time. Yeah. It sounds like you've learned a lot over the course of this journey, and just from start into what you have now, and you have a lot more to go, and you have a lot of there's no destination, you know. Even when you become the best-selling game seller, or whatever the title may be called, whatever the title is,
it's still a journey. It's still a process. There's always other things beyond that, because you know it's only a matter of time before you get there. But you know, that's not what you're aiming for. And then it's like when you get there, you're like, oh, I'm done. And, you know, I'm not gonna sell anything else. You know, my life is complete. Sure. It isn't. I don't see that in you. I don't see that. You know, that's what you're aiming for. No, definitely not. It's a continuous process. And so honestly, why is Cards for Life should be the game for 2020 that everybody should be looking out for?
Yeah. So I think like, all right. Let me see if I can contextualize my pitch right. You know, I think at the end of the day, there are a lot of card games that are like people can purchase for life, but I think there's only one rules for life, and So I think what distinguishes this game from a lot of other games is, think about like your experience playing Uno, right? Or Connect Four,
Sure.
or Monopoly, or something like that. How often do you get a chance to learn about the person that you're sitting across from when you're playing those games? I would argue that in most instances it's less about the person, it's more about kind of the game. You might talk a little trash talk, right?
Yeah.
But it's not really, you're not really getting a chance to like connect with them on a deeper level, and that's okay. I'm not suggesting those games are whack or not fun or anything like that, but I think that we live in a really interesting time where authenticity, genuine connection, vulnerability are really like truly appreciated, and people are seeking spaces in and face-to-face interactions where that can happen, right? And so I think in alignment with a lot of these conversations around mental health, conversations around just building better relationships, you know, the list goes on. Having fun, right?
Yeah.
Check that box. I think the game satisfies a lot of those and can fill a lot of different spaces. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about creating a deck that is for youth. And so some of the cards in the Roots for Life can get a little spicy, a little bit more aimed towards an adult audience, right? But
there's levels to this thing.
There's levels to it. But I am excited about the idea of being able to produce a deck for youth that would allow them to, you know, begin to explore and challenge a lot of the so-called beliefs or mantras or you know, quote unquote, you know, boys are like this and girls are like that, stories or narratives that are like, you know, kind of pervasive in our culture. Like a game that could be used at the in a fun way at the I don't know, dinner table or in the student advisory in the school. So excited about that. I'm excited also just because I'm you know, a man of color, to produce a deck that gets to explore race in some ways. And so I think having those different angles and really will create, I'm hoping will create like a lot of buzz. A lot of people will really get excited about, like, you know, what these types of experiences can be created in their lives and with their friends and their family.
Okay.
So that's the plan for 2020.
Hey, there we go. There's the pitch, guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead and get your deck of cards out there, and at rulesforlife.com. Just throwing a little plug out there. Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, I seem to hear these theme words as we talk and converse. You know, there's family, history, there's community, there's friends, and all these things. I just keep hearing that on, and that's awesome. What would you say your why is in life?
Yeah, so I am committed to creating a world where people really get an opportunity to share their talents, like within their communities. And so I think everyone is endowed with some sort of like talent, something that makes them very unique. I can't say that we're always given an opportunity to share that, and I think oftentimes those talents are not necessarily only for us. Meaning, like, think of the most beautiful, I don't know, singer you've ever heard. Yeah. If you could imagine if she just kept that voice to herself or himself, you know, we would be robbed of a amazing experience. Yeah. And so what that translates to me is, like, in education, I think there are opportunities oftentimes in the classrooms and after school and before school, or you know, in the theater program or on the court, to really have an opportunity for young folks to share kind of whatever talents they have. I do a lot of work in kind of administrative parts of education, and I love trying to facilitate meetings, retreats, etc., where people get a chance to share their talents, their knowledge, their wisdoms. And I think the Rules for Life falls in line with that, because I think when we start connecting with each other and start having these discussions, I think there's so much wisdom, knowledge, ideas, perspectives, and connection that's created. And so that's the larger why, because I think at the end of that, and through sharing talents, etc., gifts, like, you get to create deeper, more vibrant and rich communities that are connected.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sounds like a presidential speech. Does it? And I approve this message. There you go, guys. Brandon Slaughter for president, 2020. All right. It's a little bit too late to throw in your card now, but you know.
You never know. If the Rules for Life pops off, I got money. I might.
You can fund your own campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Just jump in.
But yeah, that's cool, man. And so, you know, you talked about your why, and you talked about community and all that stuff. What would you say, you know, if life is, we look at life like a house, what would you say will be one of the pillars, one of the foundational pieces of that to stand on, that your house or your life stands on?
Oh, I think it circles back around to where we started. You know, I'm very clear that I'm standing on the shoulders of an amazing family history, and some just stoic, proud, bold, like committed people. And yeah, I mean, I one of those that would have to be family. Yeah.
Well, it's quite apparent that you guys don't even have to. You don't even have to bother with the Ancestry.com. You don't have to bother with 23andMe. You save time, money. Y'all get all the family history that, you know. It's just like, that's something I wish I could have. Yeah. You know, it's really beautiful when, especially African Americans, just know where they're coming from, knowing their history. Yeah. Because we're a people that I would say, out of many races and cultures and ethnicities out there, we don't know where we come from as much as anybody else does. And that's really sad. It's really sad, but it's encouraging to see, you know, and hear your story, and as you're sharing today, and it's really encouraging. So I definitely will be picking up a 23andMe ancestry test real quick. So you're inspiring me to want to know my family history even more. Like I know bits and pieces. I know some cool stories here and there, but knowing it deeply is so important, because, you know, I hope to have, you know, my own family, and I want to share some stories with them, and I want to share all the great things that my family, my ancestors did, that maybe I don't know, maybe I don't know every single thing about them, but maybe I know significant, you know, highlights, and that's something, you know, awesome to pass down. That's something significant to pass down. So I really appreciate you sharing that about your family. So yeah. All right, so we've come to what we call question of the day. This is a segment where we just it's a more relaxed setting, and we are just asking you a random off the cuff question.
Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm gonna try.
All right. So today's question of the day is, if you were, you know, we were talking about presidential office, right?
But real quick, do I get a chance to ask you a question?
You can.
Okay.
Go for it.
I'll ask after your question.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So, you know, kind of going off the theme of, you know, you were talking about, we're just joking around about running for president. If you were in office today, which holiday would you eliminate?
Which
There's
holiday?
so many holidays out there. It's like ridiculous how many holidays we have every single day. We have like National Puppy Day. We have I love dogs, but I'm like we have National Siblings Day. We have National Carpet Day. I'm just like,
but are those actual national holidays? I'm not clear what the process is to like certify a holiday, because I've seen certain holidays that I'm like, is this like National Twins Day or like there's like Hot Dog Day or something like that?
I don't get it. I don't know how this starts, but how would you go about cleaning up a little bit?
I that's a very difficult one. I almost feel like you
might step on some toes with this one.
Yeah, you almost have to just layer it on. You just have to like layer on additional holidays. Because I don't know if I'm totally cool with there being, I don't know, the Hot Dog Day or whatever. That doesn't annoy me. If I could do the American people any like service, I think it would be to add actual national holidays in which they, like, I don't know, like they didn't have to go to work. That would be like my goal. Like, all right, it's a very generic, because I mean I know I'm an educator. But I think that there should be a like parent-teacher conference day, where like starting almost like voting, where it's like the last however many hours you get off. It's like whenever that day is, maybe it's twice a year. Sure. It's just like you get to leave work at lunch and you get to go to like a parent-teacher conference. I think it is. I don't know. I feel for parents. It's always a struggle, particularly as you get higher in grades. Yeah. To get parents there. I think that could be really like a really useful, like to everybody. You know. Yeah. Everyone would benefit from. I guess unless you're a teacher, you have to be at work. You wouldn't have it off. But everybody else, would benefit.
Well, I guess. Well, if you don't have kids out there, and if you're not a teacher, then this holiday does not affect you. So what about us? What about all the young professionals who don't have kids yet? What about us? How does that benefit us?
The first thing that comes to my mind is like I feel like there needs to be we could add an additional day after January 1st, like just called like January 2nd, or I guess January 1st should be like Recovery Day. I don't know. Like National Reflection Day. I don't know, something where people can
let me reflect on my life.
Or the other, maybe another cool idea would be to add like some sort of like half a year mark. That'd be kind of cool. So we honor the first of the year. Why can't we honor like, hey, it's 6 months in, into the next, that could be another interesting. I don't know. I'm pulling off the top of my head right now, but
yeah. Okay, you're gonna have to explain me more on that one.
I'm just thinking like, I think if we as a society, all you people out there listening, that what is today, like January 8th? Is it 8th or 9th? January 9th. Yeah. I guarantee like 50% of your listeners have either not started or have already given up on their New Year's resolutions.
It's a random statistic out there that probably alludes to what you're saying.
Yes, something like that. If you haven't, you stay strong. But why not have a mid-year kind of like, I don't know, recommit, like day where it's like it'd be the mental health day / half year mark / like get my life right. Moment.
Let me end it off right.
Exactly.
Mark. Yeah.
That's the best I can do. That's
okay.
That's pretty good.
Cool. And what was your question for me?
Oh man. Okay. Let me think of a question. Best cartoon ever. It's a long delay.
I had to drink some water on that one. I had to take a nice sip of water just to buy me some more time.
As you're thinking, I'm just gonna throw this out here. I think one of the biggest travesties we've ever witnessed as a society, like that. I hope there's a bounce back to this, but the decimation of Saturday morning cartoons right? The impact this has likely had on cereal sales, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't even fathom. But it's terrible what kids have to experience, what adults have to experience. But I'm curious if they were ever to bring back Saturday morning cartoons, the cartoon that all kids should be watching and adults if they missed it would be.
Man, I was thinking of two, but I was thinking between Tom and Jerry and Arthur.
Okay.
Because Tom and Jerry, I know it was before way before my time, but it was just a classic that every kid, no matter what generation you came from,
right,
you just watched it. That was just a standard American thing.
Yes.
Like that was a rites of passage to teenage life, honestly. Because if you didn't watch Tom and Jerry as an American kid, like what are you doing with your life? Right. That's the only cartoon that didn't require words. It's just you were just entertained just by a little mouse running around, and you had this cat chasing after it, and just like all these little crazy things that were happening. And so, man, but I'm gonna have to go with Arthur, man, because I honestly relate so much to it, because me and my sister would joke around and say like, I'm Arthur, you're DW. We would grow up saying that all the time. And she used to be the tattletale snitch and tell me every single thing I'd done. Like, and being the oldest, I used to have to, take on, I don't know, all the, everything she blamed me for, even if it wasn't my fault. So, it just reminded me so much of my family, Arthur. So I love that. I used to watch it every single day on PBS Kids, coming back from school. So, yeah, Arthur, that's the one. That is the one. So, but anyways, man, thank you so much for joining this podcast today. It's been great, just having this conversation.
No doubt.
And guys, you're out there, be sure to check him out on Instagram. That's Rules for Life. That's rules with a number 4, and that's life for life.
I would just put the in front of it, or else you might find other things. So the Rules for Life.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, that's right. The Rules for Life. That's right. Correction. The Rules for Life. You can find him on Instagram and his website, and that's therulesforlife.com. Again, that's The Rules for Life. Check him out. Buy a stack of cards today. They're running at $10 right now. Yeah. So if you happen, I'm not sure when this is going to air, we had a little Christmas, New Year sale. But in general, if you get this after, I don't know, the end of January, they'll be $15, which is a steal. When you think about some of these other games out there. So sure, we just throwing in some plugs, but I won't say any names. But yes, thank you so much for joining. And all right, guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow, and share with all your friends. We'll see you next time. Love you guys, and take care.